as our closing speaker is down below warming up, getting ready to come on up here and deliver his insights from NSGIC, I thought I would pass along. I got a couple admin notes that we've been approached on several instances by some of the smaller groups. I think DOT was one that was interested on the question of whether or not there would be any space left available to meet on the back end of today's closing event. And in fact, the university, always flexible, University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, has made available 2 rooms in this building, 328 and 342, if you would like to use those for whatever you'd like to do before getting on the road and driving off. They're available. Just check with Angie out at the registration table there, and she'll make sure that that one of the rooms is made available to you, just so we know who's gone where, kind of thing. And they'll be available till 4 o'clock this afternoon. The next thought I would, before introducing Chris formally, I would just like to pass along one sort of closing thought from the perspective of the conference and why we try to do this, and maybe something for you to carry away. In 2013, the New York Times followed around the Google crew to get a sense of where things are going. And out of that effort, they came to a conclusion that there are, in our lifetime, there are 3 central technologies. And their conclusion kind of goes this way. In talking about who has won the war of who, the winner is Facebook. And the conclusion of who has won the war of what, it's Google. And in trying to conclude who has won the war of where, and as they described it, the most powerful element of all, they've concluded that no one has won that yet, and it continues to be a struggle. But the thought that I would hope you carry away, if you think about the range of where this world has evolved from us chasing each other around with sticks and living in caves, where has always been central to anything that anyone ever does. And so you're involved in the most powerful technology, in my opinion, of our era. And so in moving towards the thought of our closing speaker, the president of the National States Geographic Information Council, Chris will perhaps enlighten us on some things that he understands from the perspective of that presidency, of where we'll see some things transpiring or going in the coming future. And with that thought, I will introduce Chris formally as I've said, the president, and he'll be providing closing thoughts, but I just thought I would give you one little paragraph of background on Chris. Chris is the Geospatial Coordinator for the Wisconsin Department of Military Affairs, home to the Wisconsin National Guard and Wisconsin Emergency Management. Since 2003, his job has been to oversee and coordinate the department's mapping activities, including support for the State Emergency Operations Center and the National Guard Joint Operations Center. And being the kind of a volunteering individual that he is taken on additional responsibilities and being involved with NSGIC. And most interestingly, I think, in introducing Chris, is he pulled me aside at WLIA and he said, "I'm so happy I'm going to get to talk to lacrosse." And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because it's a homecoming for him." He graduated from the school, so he says, "I'll be speaking 300 feet from where I attended school." So very cool. And with that, we welcome him to.
Good afternoon. Yeah, as Steve says, very exciting for me to be here. Are there any other UWL alums here besides myself? You've got 2, 3. That's awesome. Very exciting, definitely to be here. Lots of memories from this great institution. This very room, as I look around, when you sent some pictures out about what, where I'm going to be presenting and the audience I'm going to be engaging in, and I looked at those pictures and I went, oh my goodness, that's where I had freshman orientation. Was this 21 years ago, 1995, I graduated. And yesterday I had an opportunity to walk around campus a little bit. I went over to Cowley Hall, visited the second floor there, the geography department. Interestingly enough, that floor, that hasn't changed. Everything is still there. It's really kind of weird. Even the dust is still there. I mean, there are a few changes, but most of it has not changed. And it's great to be back. I came to this institution because of not geography. I came here from high school. I was a sports athlete and ran track and field, and so I was a track athlete for this university. But I left as a geography major. And while the reasons for coming into the university were vastly different for the reasons that I left, I think this university, I think all those professors that educated me through my schooling, most of them, almost all of them now have left. Dr. Cravens is still there. I think he may be retired after this semester. He was actually my advisor and he was still here, so I emailed him and I said, if you get a chance to come on over. But I don't see him here today. So what's interesting though, in having a chance to be able to visit the university and visit the department and walk around campus is this idea of connecting with our past. And I think it's really important to connect with our past and take time to reflect on those things. Reflection on our past allows us to respect our past. And so this is sort of there are 3 things about connecting with our past that are really important. And respect is one of those things. Respect, appreciation for the things that have been done and where we're at today. And just as important is the lessons learned, being able to carry those forward. Society cannot improve and cannot advance itself without understanding our past. And I think it's very important to connect with our past. And we do that. Within NSGIC, the National States Geographic Information Council, it's our 25th anniversary coming up. And I hope that some of you in here will be there and we'll have an opportunity to do just that. We're bringing back some of our first presidents of the organization, and taking that moment to connect is very important. As I was walking around campus, I had a chance to think about some of my very first GIS projects. The very first GIS project, in fact, Cowley Hall is not too far from here. It's just a couple hundred yards from here. And I remember as I was walking around, there's a little bridge walkway on the second floor between the geography department and all the classrooms. And I can tell you where I was standing when I heard geographic information systems for the first time. Dr. Stolte, Dr. Chu, Chris, you really need to look at this technology and take some classes in it. And I'm like, well, what is this GIS stuff? I can barely spell that at the time. But it was fun. I was enamored with the technology and quickly jumped in. My very first project, actually, it was a unique project. It wasn't ArcGIS and it wasn't Esri-based. It was actually Corel Draw, if some of you might remember what that is, on PC 286 machines back in 1992. Those 286 machines were really slow. And in fact, that was before the internet, right? So here I am on Corel Draw trying to figure out how to make my first GIS map. And it really wasn't a GIS map, it was just a cartography project more than anything. But I made this awesome map. It was a map of China, and it was a map showing all the provinces and their populations, and I extruded each of the the provinces based off of the population. Dr. Chu is really interesting because he's an old school cartographer who spent a lot of time airbrushing cartographic maps, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what a waste, man. Let's use the computers. We can do this a whole lot faster, right? But there's a lesson learned in that, and that's this idea of connecting with our past. But I learned in that process with that China map roadmap how to make a sort of a three-layered Mylar, yellow, red, green, yellow, and red, blue, green, sorry about that, and the little tick marks on the side. We make three different see-through transparencies, and we went to the light table. There's a light, in the room, we had a ultraviolet table that flips, and you get a piece of photographic paper specially designed for that, and you lay it on there, and then you add your map, your transparencies, and you line up the tick marks and get everything taped up, and then you flip it over, and then you hit the button, and you quickly run out of the room because it's ultraviolet, right? After about 2 minutes, you come back in because it's safe again, and you get it out and you process it, and all of a sudden, voila, I had my first map. I don't know where that thing is. I wish I still had it. It's probably buried in one of my books. That was really the first product that I ever made. Shortly thereafter, a friend of mine, colleague, student of mine, Sean Asp, and I had this great ambition, a great idea that, hey, why don't we go get some records from La Crosse County and do a three-dimensional model of groundwater. We'll put all the wells and we'll make this great model. Well, it's 1993, right? I mean, let's be realistic here. I think my point is on this one, it's great to have large imaginations with great ambitions, and we should never be restricted by that. We should always be thinking about these great, big, large ambitions and very imaginative type of ideas, because that's how we innovate. This is how we innovate in government, this is how we innovate within private industry and as society. Without having these great, big imaginations, we are not able to get anywhere as a society. And so that was a really big lesson. Maybe I didn't know it at the time, but as I look back at that time and I say to myself, wow, that's really amazing that I had this wherewithal and this thought to be able to think big. And I encourage all of you in your jobs today to continue to do that. Always think big. Now, we have to use reality as a marker to get us back focused. And usually the project management triangle that we're all familiar with, money, performance, and time, is that check mark that restricts us on that imagination. But we should always have time set aside to think big. And those ambitions should always be there. That has always suited me very well over the years. And I've been very fortunate and very lucky to be in the position that I'm in today. I've taken those lessons that I learned from my early days in college, and I've carried them forward into the job that I have today at the Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety, and now as leading a national geospatial organization. And so our organization, along with other geospatial organizations, are collaborating on a number of things. And they're big. They're big ideas, big thoughts. Of course, reality always sets in that tells us that these things are not easy to do. They're very difficult. I think all of you know that. So the question is, how many of you have heard of NSGIC before? I'd say the majority. There are a few of you who don't. So NSGIC is the National State Geographic Information Council, or nonprofit. We represent state coordination. And our mission, and our members of federal, state, and local government, we actually had an MOU with the Tribal GIS organization, with no specific Tribal GIS members at this time. But our mission here really is to promote statewide coordination through the use of technology, or GIS, which enables this concept, the National Spatial Data Infrastructure. Everyone's heard about that? Yes? Please tell me. All right. We've all heard NSDI. And I will refer that from now on to NSDI. But that's really what it's really about. It's using GIS technology to enable this idea of what NSDI is about, building data sets and making them available to the public. We advocate for this for NSDI in a variety of ways, but most importantly, our vision is national programs, national data sets, national themes, but data roll-ups. When NSDI came into existence, 25 plus years ago, or more, the concept at that point was that the federal government was going to make all the data. Well, the paradigm has shifted, mostly through all of your efforts in land records modernization and other efforts, and now it's almost entirely locally driven. And I think from an indigent perspective, the idea here is providing national access, national data sets, but through local roll-ups, because locals are so vitally important. Without you, without local government, we cannot achieve this vision of a national spatial data infrastructure. What's driving this advocacy? Well, there's a whole bunch of things, right? Economic development, environmental management, but public safety right now seems to be the hottest item. It's all about public safety. I happen to be in that field. I know quite a bit about it. But the other thing really to think about here, and it's these 3 bullet points put together here, is that this idea of making sure that that data is good data, it's accurate data, has good quality, and it's in the public domain, and we're using technologies effectively to make good decisions. That's what's driving this concept of our advocacy and this concept of national roll-ups. So what is the NSGIC? Well, it's defined as the technologies, policies, and people necessary to promote sharing of geospatial data throughout all levels of government, private and nonprofit sectors, and the academic community. Well, in a nutshell, what it means is we are NSDI. I mean, we're a collection of individuals from various forms of government, levels of government, private sector, and academia, working together for one goal, and that's putting together data sets made available for all, and using technology to do that. There are really 3 goals of NSGI, and the first one, forging partnerships, is exactly why we are here today. Whether you know it or not, you are participating in NSGI. I think that's a really important aspect. Without that focus, we're just a bunch of people floating around building data sets and not coordinating, and that's an essential function of NSGI. Of course, building the framework that includes national coordinated programs and documenting that and making it accessible and available is part of that. And then communicating that message. So if you've heard about NSDI, and that's what I'm doing here today, that's part of that effort. A little bit of history on NSDI. Was really born out of this, from the federal government, was born out of this idea that we need coordination. And a very powerful branch of the federal government is the Office of Management and Budget, is part of the White House. Way back in 1990, wrote a document called Circular A16 that really defined what we needed to do. They established a federal geographic data committee and called for the development of sort of national state spatial data standard and policies and the need for data. Well, a few years later, in 1994, President Clinton signed Executive Order 12906. 12906 is a very important executive directive. It's been revised a couple times, but the essential piece of that is it created the NSDI, and that has really been a foundation for moving forward. In that Circular A16 document, it identified the framework layers. These are the layers that are really important to our nation. They may not be reflective of state and local government, but they are reflective of the nation as a whole. And you know, it's been quite a few years since they had this, and so we might be missing a few layers. And you wonder why addresses was never added in the beginning. Well, back then addresses were looked at a little bit differently than they are today. And 911, which I'll talk about in a little bit here, is providing that. Who is responsible for building the NSDI? Well, I kind of like this graphic. I got it off the internet. Scrambled states in America. I think that's pretty reflective of where we're at the moment. We have, I'll just say this, one of the advantages of being in the United States and the advantages of having a collection of states is also our detriment. And the advantage is each state is autonomous. We have our own constitutions, we have our own rules. Granted, we follow under the rules of the U.S. Constitution, but in large part, we operate, our governments operate differently. We have different agencies that are designed differently. And they're unique to each state, and that's what makes us unique as a nation. But it also can be problematic in the things that we try to achieve with GIS. Congress needs to get involved. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But the idea here with enabling the NSDI is that we all need to be participating. All of us, but also everyone else who are not involved with GIS, and Congress is a big key in that. Again, this idea of a top-down guidance with local roll-ups is so very important. And our role in state government is to stand between local government and federal government to help coordinate that. At state agencies, we have a few GIOs here from Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and our role within our states is to advocate for local government and communicate to the federal government what it is that we need and how we need it. And so we spend a lot of time with our federal partners trying to guide them in the directions and teach them about things that are going on in the local government. And on occasion we jab them here and there, but mostly we get along pretty well. But we try to approach our federal partners as partners and not as adversaries, trying to achieve our goals. Last year, there was a report card on NSGI, and this was produced by an organization called the Coalition of Geospatial Organizations, 13 national organizations, Wisconsin being one of them, NSGIC being one of them. And I think there's a few more national geospatial organizations, but this right here represents the majority of them. There's probably a few more. In fact, there's a few advisory organizations that don't have voting rights. These are the ones that have voting rights. What's unique about COGO is, in order for them to endorse something, every one of them has to vote. One organization votes against it, it doesn't go through. They voted in full agreement on this report card that was released last year. And the idea here is, and there's a link at the bottom here if you're interested in the report, you can take a closer look at it. But the idea here is that with this report, they wanted to provide all of us kind of an opportunity to step back and look at it and say, okay, where are we? How are we doing as a nation, and where do we need to improve? Are we making progress? Are we looking at our investments and we're actually accomplishing anything? Really, the document was well done, and it was good or bad, I guess, but certainly was a little bit scathing in its grade, but I think it was right on the money. There were a few positives. I would say we've done very well in setting metadata standards across the board. We have those, but really the positives were few and far between. There certainly is a shift in the way we develop data at the local government. We certainly work with our private sector partners, and even private sector is even developing their own data sets and making them available. We have to recognize that. How can we accomplish our goals in this new environment? So, not to get into each individual detail, the only grade that had a decent grade was GIOC Control at a B+. This isn't a reflection on the federal government. This is a reflection on all of us at the federal, state, local, private, academia, working together to accomplish the NSDI. Some of the federal government took this as a very negative response. COGO had to work with them to say, this is not just you, it's everyone. We need to be more collaborative to accomplish our goals and make these data sets more publicly available and do them from a national perspective. Hopefully the next time that the report comes out, we'll have some improvements, and that's certainly the goal. One way to improve things is we have a piece of legislation moving through Congress right now. It's called the Geospatial Data Act of 2015. The intended purpose of this is to take 12906 and NSDI and move it out of the executive branch and move it to the legislative branch to give Congress oversight. And the reason that we want to be able to do that is Congress is not going to put any more money into, they're not going to fund any geospatial programs, with the exception of a few things here and there, but they're not going to put significant money into GIS without understanding how much money they're spending. So if you ask our federal government right now how much we're spending on geospatial programs, nobody can tell you. We have no idea. And so what this legislation does, it gives Congress the ability to ask the federal government, federal agencies to report on what they're spending. Are we duplicating? Are we buying things twice and 3 times and 4 times over? And how can we improve that? And that will give Congress a little bit more leverage in funding other activities into the future. There's a whole bunch of things that this bill does. It gives all of us a much better voice than we do right now. But that's really where we're at. The bill currently is stuck in committee. Believe it or not, we have 10 co-sponsors of the bill. 5 Republican, 5 Democrats, so it's not a partisan bill, it's a bipartisan bill. It likely won't make it through this Congress, it'll have to be reintroduced, but we'll continue to move it forward. Closure, Minnesota is a co-sponsor. Thank you, Dan Ross, for all your work on that and getting that done. I've worked with Tammy Baldwin's office on a regular basis to get them to co-sponsor, and they haven't quite gotten there yet. But if you're out there and you want to write letters to your congressional delegates to support this activity, I encourage that. So another really big issue that's really hot on our heels right now is this idea of next generation 911. I know there were a few presentations today and maybe even yesterday about next generation 911. I have a question for you guys. How many in here have dialed 911 before? Just raise your hand. Okay. How many have, when you dial, have received a busy signal? Okay, I have. Talbot has. Anyone else? Busy signal? All right. 76% of all 911 calls are from wireless devices. You know these things? So 20 years ago, when there was an accident on a street corner, on a busy street corner, what happened? Somebody got out of the car or drove down the street to the local business or phone booth and dialed 911. Right? So 911 PSAT location is probably getting maybe 2 or 3 calls. Now how many calls are they getting? Dozens, if not more, right? Landlines in a 911 center are fixed. There are very few of them. 20, 30, maybe 40, maybe larger if you're a larger metropolitan area. If you're getting hundreds of calls at one time, you're going to get a busy signal. That's a problem. Another problem. How many in here would expect that if you call 911 that you will be found without having to tell them where you're at? You would expect that, wouldn't you? Do you realize that the majority of calls, 85% in Arkansas, 90% in the District of Columbia, and many other states are in that realm, cannot be found? They are not found. If I dial 911 right now, don't do it. But if I were to do it right here, the 911 dispatcher would not know where I'm at. That's a problem. If I need medical assistance and I'm by myself, they're not going to find me. That is a problem. So we have to be able to modernize all our 911 systems, that idea of next generation 911, moving from a copper-based landline system to an IP-based, putting in fiber networking. Problem that we have, and I lose this item down here below, is if we have a phone call that goes to, I'll just use Dane County in my town, Dane County, and now we've got an IP-based system, and now that phone call is distributed to a neighboring county, Columbia County, Jefferson County, you name it. How are they going to dispatch without the appropriate information, right? They need a dispatchable address. It would be nice if they had more than a dispatchable address, but they had a bunch of other GIS information to help out the first responder. How are they going to do that? Because right now, the way it is, each individual jurisdiction or PSAT only has the information, geospatial information for their jurisdiction. They don't have it for the neighboring counties, in most cases. There are some around the U.S. that are starting to do that. But this idea of having an NSDI, having data in multiple jurisdictions that allows for neighboring counties to dispatch resources from another county. Wow, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? So this kind of takes me to the next point on this national address database. Why? Well, it's really important. Obviously, the next generation 911 is a big driver. There's a whole bunch of drivers. You can see them listed up here, and there's much more on here that I didn't put. Who would have guessed that the most used data set and the most often duplicated data set in all of government, federal, state, and local government is addresses? Yeah, I read that and my jaw hit the floor. I was like, really? Is that true? If you really think about it, addresses are attached to everything. Spreadsheets, emails, Word documents. I mean, they're everywhere. Everything that you do has an address to it. It's the most often duplicated piece of information in all of government. Amazing. How can we improve that? That's part of the discussion that's happening on the national stage right now. And the benefits are endless if we have a national address database. I mean, it's just amazing how we can help our local communities with the next generation 911 and economic development. And obviously, The question is, why is it not a framework layer? Well, I have news for you. My guess is before the end of this year, it will be. I think the FGC will probably act upon that, and eventually OMB will update A Circular 16 to include that. That's my hope anyway. I stole this from a colleague of mine in Utah, and this is sort of what the real world would look like in a national address database. The idea here is in a single parcel, there are multiple addresses, so it's not a single point in Polygon. You've got certainly single family home residentials where it's a single point per polygon, but apartment buildings and businesses have multiple addresses. And then from a 911 perspective, think about the Z value, right? Larger towers, where in elevation are they at, especially in apartment buildings. That's a big issue and one we're trying to work with our friends at the National Emergency Number Association, NENA, with as well. In 2012, the National Geospatial Advisory Council identified that addresses are a public resource, a valuable resource. And then last year, in October 2015, even the White House recognized this. Very important. And has called to launch a process to create a consolidated public listing of every address in the United States. So even the White House now has gotten into the game, and there's certainly some movement happening right now in the federal government. So what specifically is ISGIC advocating for? That number one, address is becoming a framework theme. I've already mentioned that a couple of times. A minimum content standard of physical address plus the location, X and Y location. Certainly postal addresses are important, but in the real world, the 911 world, the postal address doesn't always meet that. And postal addresses are so much more complex and difficult than physical addresses. Roll route numbers and PO box numbers and a bunch of other things. And getting away from that, it's not that we can't solve it, it becomes so complex and convoluted that we'll never be able to publish something. So the focus is to start on something small, achieve that, and then grow that larger. Again, and I'll say this over and over again, locally driven. 911 starts at the local half the ride. There's a position paper. When you get these slides, I encourage you to read that. We just produced those back in April. As you put that together, and shared that with several committees within the federal government to understand that they understand where we stand as a state and as local government. Another item that we're really dealing with is this item called resiliency. It's a buzzword. You've probably heard that through emails. Esri has talked about it. The White House has talked about it. But it's an important issue, very important issue. Now, I don't know whether you believe in climate change or not, or global warming. That's beside the point. Let's stick to the facts. Facts are that our sea levels are rising, our storms are getting stronger and more numerous and more dangerous. And let's face it, the population is growing. The target is becoming much easier to hit from Mother Nature. I mean, at some point, we're going to have more people. It's just going to happen. It's fact. So one of the things we have to worry about is how do we become more resilient as a community? And mapping provides that help. There's a program within NOAA. Our friends at NOAA were here this week. It was great to see them yesterday and today. There's a Digital Coast program. We have a partnership. NACO and the Association of Floodplain Managers, NSGIC, and a few others have collaborated together with NOAA to create this program within NOAA called the Digital Coast Program. Sorry, Iowa, you're not part of that because Missouri and Mississippi rivers are not considered coastal, but the concept is still important. We have to be resilient across the board within our digital coast. The problem is, and the goal of this is to provide tools and training and data for our communities to make better decisions on things like land use and zoning and erosion control, all that other stuff. We provide things like county snapshots, or NOAA does, to give community leaders some perspective of the impacts, and these tools are really important. The problem is the Digital Coast program is not a permanent program. It's not a far cry to think that one of the next president, you probably can make your own guess at who that might be, would want to get rid of this particular program and be done with it. And so we are working with our Digital Coast partners to introduce a piece of legislation to make that program a permanent piece within NOAA. Right now, they're siphoning off money from different aspects of NOAA to make that program work. NOAA likes the program, so they're not going to get rid of it, but who's to say that somebody else won't get rid of it? So we want to maintain those programs. We want to keep them there. This has been led by Senator Tammy Baldwin here in Wisconsin, and I will say that it's a past committee. There were 4 co-sponsors. I think it was about 3 weeks ago it passed committee, so now it's available for scheduling on the floor. We think in June that it will actually come to a vote. That's kind of the thinking. There's a companion bill on the House side, and that has to go through. And hopefully, this is the 4th time it's been introduced, 4 Congresses. So we're hopeful that this is finally the time for it to get through. So we're very excited about that particular aspect. As part of resiliency, and I know we're pushing up against the clock here, and I'll leave about 5 more minutes. Another aspect of what we're doing is this thing in 3D elevation, 3D program, and it's a really good program, and it's allowing us in our communities an opportunity to grow. And really the goal here is to improve a high accuracy elevation model for the United States. I mean, that's what we want, and we want these things for a variety of reasons, and resiliency is one of those drivers. What you're seeing here right now is we're working with our partners in the federal government. We got money all over the place. We got money coming out of FEMA, we got money coming out of USGS, we got money coming out of NOAA and some other places, and we're trying to work with them to make the process less convoluted. If anybody has participated in the last go-around of 3D funding and partnering, you will have found that it was a very difficult and unwieldy process. And so we're sitting down with our federal partners to say, hey, we got to improve this. This isn't working. So I'm hoping the next few cycles, not only will you see their improvement in the procurement process and participation in partnering process, but I would also think that, and I can tell you that there's probably going to be some additional funding. More money is coming in this area, so keep that in mind. The last couple things I'll mention here is this is just released. It's every 2 years we do an assessment of our nation. We do a questionnaire that goes out to all our states, and each state has an opportunity to ask a whole slew of questions. Questions are very detailed. It's called the Geospatial Maturity Assessment, and it's intended to give all of us a sense of how we're doing as a nation in our states, our individual states, and allows us to compare ourselves to other states in different categories, from coordination to ortho imagery to elevation, you name it. It's here. And so that website, the NSGIC webpage /PMA is the latest one. We had one in 2013, and we do it every 2 years. So we'll be doing another one here in a year and a half or so. I'm very excited about that, and that it's up there, and it's interactive. It gives a bunch of maps, and you can ask any question that you want that's available there. The last thing I'm going to leave with all of you is, this is our, as I said earlier, this is our 25th year in NSGIC. We are on the cusp of, for the first time, of hiring an executive director. We've never had one before. I'm very excited about that opportunity, bringing somebody on board. I'm just really excited about that. There's a whole lot of possibilities of having an executive director that we've never had, from membership growth and advocacy issues and helping bring those forward. So I'm very excited about that. I hope that some of you will consider coming to Indianapolis. We've got some things planned. If you were there last year and got to see the fireworks, holy crap, those were awesome. They were right there front and center, about blew my ears out. And so I don't think we're gonna have fireworks this year, but we got a whole bunch of fun things planned. So if you have an opportunity, you're in the area, you want to come down, I want to let everyone know you're all welcome to come. That's all I have for today. The whole concept of thinking big and thinking outside the box is sort of a concept that I think of, and I hope all of you will continue to carry that forward, the lessons that you've learned, and apply them in your day-to-day job. Think big, and let's get things done. So, Steve, thank you very much.
You got time for 2 questions.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Steve, you got it.
Sure, I'll take a couple of questions.
Yeah, everybody wants to get on the road for Memorial Day.
That's okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Okay, obviously schedule. As it's my understanding from talking to Angie just a moment ago, that you've already been sent your opportunity to respond to the survey. So please follow up on that if you will. And last but not least, safe driving going home. Thank you very much for being here.